Melissa Chimay, welcome to the Iconoclast one-to-one interview.
Thanks for inviting me back.
So, Melissa, we spoke last year and it was a very popular interview with people all around the world. And the astonishing thing is that pretty much everything you said has either come true or looks like it's about to come true. So my question is this: how did you know?
Well, I read their objectives and they tell you exactly what the plan is, and I believe that they're going to try and carry it out. If you go through the 8 predictions, they're being played out to their full potential. You will own nothing and be happy. We're in the process of not owning anything. It started off with the lockdowns. That was the beginning of the eradication of small to medium businesses. Then we moved on to the money printing, which caused the inflation. Then the increased energy prices, that increases the price of everything. When you increase energy, it's a great way to hide inflation. We're now in the transition into higher interest rates. So those small to medium businesses that have managed to cling on, they're more likely than not to be dependent on debt. That's going to wipe them out. And then we're going to move into the subscription, then the green finance, and then the carbon credits. So the first one was you will own nothing and be happy. The second one, you will rent what you need. The debt-based system is over. They needed us to be consumers for that system. They don't need us to be consumers anymore. They need us to be obedient. They want to move everything into a subscription society, that you rent everything that you need. So instead of, if you don't pay it, it will be taken away from you. If you don't comply, it will be taken away from you. It's not as big a leap as people might think. We are pretty much there right now. People have their mortgages, they have their car payments. They're taking out credit for a washing machine, a kettle, for tiny things. So that's near rent to buy. So it's easier to move people into that than it is to save and then to buy. So, and then you have your customer for life then, and it's an endless revenue stream. That's why Lloyds are moving into buying up property under Project Generation. You have BlackRock buying up properties. You have BMW coming out and saying that it's $12 a month for heated seats, everything on subscription. So that's playing out in reality. The US will no longer be the superpower. Well, it's being challenged now for reserve status. From 1971, when the dollar came off gold standard, it was pseudo-pegged to oil. That was a 50-year deal that ended last year. Saudi Arabia ended that deal. Saudi Arabia have now made a deal with China that to give them all their energy requirements over the next 50 years. The next was that there will be a handful of countries will dominate. We're absolutely moving into that. I would say, well, China are moving towards 2049, but there will be regional reserve currencies. Jerome Powell has come out and said that there doesn't need to be just one world reserve currency. You have, let's see what else, the integrate refugees. We're certainly seeing that here. There's no vetting, there's no caps, there's no explanation for why it seems to be predominantly young males.
And what do you think about that? Like, what is the purpose of that? Why? I mean, they obviously sold it as refugees from war-torn countries, the elderly, women, children, etc. And yet, what we are seeing are predominantly young, fit males, and a lot of them are from countries that are not war-torn. So
there's the suggestion that it could be soldiers. There's also the suggestion that it could be workers. It's that patriots to a country won't be willing to do the work that is going to be required to meet the agenda. So there's no real, it's certainly suspicious, the demographic. so you would definitely want to ask questions about the demographic and the lack of vetting. Perhaps they will definitely be needing a digital ID, which is that is where we're moving on to. The next is carbon tax, a global price on carbon. For me, this is the end game for central bank digital currency. They have found a way to make carbon a commodity and give it a price. So I would expect that people would definitely question the science around climate, the climate crisis, when it's given carbon a price, that maybe it's a little bit more suspicious, and you might want to take a look at that. We are moving into a carbon credits system that can only be implemented through central bank digital currency and a digital ID. The digital ID will be rolled out within the next 12 months. 12 to 24 months will be the digital ID and the central bank digital currency. You have India, who have the Aadhaar digital ID. They're rolling out, they're piloting their central bank digital currency now in December. China already have it. Over 50% of the countries around the world are looking at it, piloting it. There is that overarching, beyond the social and the political fighting that's going on, there's an overarching financial reset that is the elephant in the room that nobody is actually talking about. That is going to be reset to social and carbon credits. Net zero is not about saving the planet. Net zero is about taking control of the food and the energy and finding a way to turn that into a currency. Putin was explicit in that. He said that you cannot feed your people from social media. You need to supply them with food and energy. But they are. It will be done through carbon credits. Carbon credits is the new currency. It will be a combination of social and carbon credits.
So are you saying that's going to be the only currency? There won't be any other currencies? This will just be like the social credit system in China, where there's a score and people have to try and maintain that score or things like that? Like, is that it? There won't be anything else?
Well, that's the suggestion. When you think that from their point of view, there is too many people on the planet and not enough resources for these people. Now, there is enough resources. Saudi Arabia has enough oil for 500 years. There is enough food. There should not be any hunger in the world. There is enough food. It's politics that gets in the way of that. But if you're coming from a perspective that you think that there is not too many people and not enough energy resources, you either reduce the population or ration the energy resources, or both.
And what do you think they're choosing to do then?
There is population decline and demographic decline in the West. They're moving to ration the food and the energy. The fiat currency is based on absolutely nothing. It's the faith of the people. And with inflation, that starts to lose faith in the currency. So they're scrambling to get in a new currency. The new currency will be a credits system, because the credit system is based on what is tangible wealth, food and fuel. So they take control of that, turn it into a currency and issue it through central bank digital currency, which is programmable money. They have total control. It's individual monetary policy. They have complete control over every aspect of your life. Where you go, what you eat, what you buy, what you do, everything. That's the capability of central bank digital currency.
A lot of people that I have spoken to have pretty much said, well, if I have nothing to hide and this means that I have a guaranteed income, then okay, yeah, I'm okay with that. But the reality is, what's going to happen if we don't do something about this? What is really going to be the situation?
Well, you are at the mercy of the dictate of the government or the shadow government. There's no one that agrees with every single policy from government. So at some stage, you're going to disagree with something and you're going to be cut off. You're going to be sanctioned with the penalties. And people need to realise that they're not going to agree with everything. I can take absolutely any individual and explain to them why it's a terrible idea for them. If you're on universal basic income and you like to drink wine and you buy 2 bottles of wine, they can decide, oh, that's not good for your health, so we're going to stop you from buying wine. They can stop you from buying any goods. They can stop you from saving. So if you want to save to buy a house to go on a holiday, they can issue you with negative interest rates on your saving. They have every capability to control every aspect of your life. And with increased computer power, they can tailor that to the individual. So there's nobody that's going to escape this level of control. If you have nothing to hide, that's fine. But do you want the government dictating every aspect of your life?
And in terms of the technological capabilities, are we there yet? Like, is it actually feasible from a logistical point of view that they can do this?
No, we're not there. We're not entirely there. No, these are concepts in people's heads that they inch towards all the time. So they never achieve 100%, but they're always moving a little bit towards it. But you have the concept of B multiplied by C multiplied by D, the Yuval Harari, where B is biological knowledge multiplied by computer power multiplied by data, which is what they're working on now. They need the data, equals hackable humans. So if you combine then central bank digital currency with artificial intelligence, which is constantly increasing, when the more data it receives, the better it gets, they are building the prison. That's what the prison is. The prison is an artificial intelligence prison. Your phone right now is your prison warden, and they cannot happen without digital ID. Digital ID is the last gate that we can rebel at.
Can we rebel? Is there any way of actually stopping this? Or are there too many people who've bought into it? Where are we?
We explained that it's a juggernaut. The agenda is a juggernaut going off a cliff. It's not going to work, but it's a juggernaut going off a cliff, and it's accelerating right now. There's people on board that realise that something's wrong, but they don't have anywhere to go. The only way is to sidestep it. Just let it happen. You're not going to stop. For me, central bank digital currency absolutely is going to happen. There's no doubt about it. The only variable is how long will it last before people rebel against it. But what's happening right now is that people are creating alternative communities. There's shop local alternative currency communities where you just issue the currency locally and that maintains velocity within the local community. There is alternative schools popping up because of this woke narrative that parents they don't want their children having they don't want sexuality to be on the radar of a child. It shouldn't be on the radar of a child, so they're stepping away from that. So this is naturally, organically happening. And what people need to maybe do is have a look at where that's happening in your area, because you'd be surprised how much this is gathering traction. So there is alternatives to it. I would suggest that if you know that the system is failing, the fiat currency, like everyone before, don't hold your wealth in numbers on a screen. It's just pieces of paper. It's just numbers on a screen. It's not actual wealth. Money is supposed to be is a store of your sweat equity. What numbers on the screen are not that. So you need to really look at getting out of those numbers and into tangible wealth. I am a fan of precious metals. I think that they have a long way to go. I know that central banks are prolifically buying up precious metals along with countries. So what do they know? My guess is there's going to be a revaluation. Even if there's not, they are the known store of wealth. If you know that, if you frame everything in the context of an economic collapse, everything starts to make more sense and you can start to plan for that. Interest rates are going to rise. It was said that they absolutely could not rise interest rates because it would collapse the economy. That is happening with the Fed. That's forcing the ECB. So look at getting your secured debt, either pay it down or get it on as long a fixed rate mortgage as you can. Put down your phone. It's your prison warden. Start moving away into an alternative way of living. I think that we have been so manipulated into being consumers, we don't even realize that we're there. It's not making us happy. So it would maybe be a good thing to try a different way of living. And maybe we're not just here to pay off a mortgage and die. Maybe there's something else to life.
And do we need everybody to participate in this kind of new way of being for it to work?
No. They need everybody to participate. We don't. This is why it won't work. In order for them, they have picked pandemics and viruses and climate are perfect. If you want to initiate a one world order, they're perfect because there's no start. You can't identify where it came from. There's no conclusion to where it ended. We've seen that it was just, one day you don't have to wear masks, you don't have to do this, you don't have to have screens up. So there's no identifiable end to it. So
and you can't see it.
Yes.
It's invisible.
Yeah.
The invisible enemy.
They're perfect because it's a global issue. It's not a regional issue. So every country has to get on board. I'm not saying that the lockdown and medical mandates were a test, but if they were, we know what to expect moving forward, and they know what holes to plug. They realised that they couldn't get everybody on board, and they realised that information was very dangerous to them because it opened up another avenue from thinking. Prior to this, when they wanted to run an agenda, they had the newspapers and they had the media and they had complete control over it. They need the internet to constantly feed us, to manipulate us. But the danger of that is that the information is out there. So you can go to the source of the mRNA, the inventor of the mRNA vaccine. You can go to the technology, or you can go to a live webcam in Kiev. So if you want to question the narrative, it's access. That's why they're shutting it down as misinformation, goes against community standards. So if we know that, the most important thing that we can do is find out the information for ourselves and get it out there. I was looking at the Milgram experiment and I found that very interesting because that experiment showed that 80% of people hadn't got the moral compass to defy authority. But 20% of people had the critical thinking capacity to defy authority. That is in alignment with the uptake of the clinical trial, the percentages. So when you take that information and you look at studies that were done, that if 3.5% of the population rise up against the government, no government can withstand that. So we don't need even that 20%. We only need between 3.5% and 5%, but it needs to be active and it needs to be sustained. And then the tipping point comes, critical mass comes, and more people lean towards freedom than complete oppression.
So how close are we, do you think, to that tipping point?
I think we're getting closer every day. It's being heavily censored. The protests are now at a global scale. It's just being there's a media blackout on it. So I do have great hope that we are more moving towards that way of being. It seems to be a movement towards the BRICS nation mentality socially, the communism agenda, to move. The BRICS are almost being used against the West. But the West, we have got used to, the illusion of democracy. Maybe we're realising that it's an illusion, the illusion of owning things, because you'll find out that you maybe don't own what you think you own. Try not to pay your taxes and you'll find out what you own. But we're waking up to that, and what we like what we thought we had, and we might want to go out and get that now. The reset is happening, but maybe we want to take control of it and reset it our way.
So what would be your ideal outcome then? Like, what is our way?
I think that, like I said, people need to renegotiate why they're here. There's part of it that I would agree with. I don't like the mass consumption. It is wasteful. I think we have to have a more respectful attitude towards how we live and how we interact with the planet. The people that are so obsessed with this zero carbon issue seems to be the ones that are doing the least. That would be my suspicion of them. If you wanted a fair system, if carbon was the issue, because they use carbon because they don't want to address pollution, but if that was the issue and you believed in that, well then it would be a fair system for everybody to get the same carbon allowance. But they are running on a system where they can buy the right to pollute. So there's the advantage of being wealthy. So you'd want a fair system that there was no advantage, but that's not the system that they're running from. This goes back to like 1992. The Kyoto Protocol was like Article 17, where it was the issuance and trading of carbon credits. That's where this goes back to. It's not about saving the planet. They don't care about the planet. They care about getting in. Finance goes to where it gets the greatest return. There's a move into the green finance. It's all about profit. It's not about the planet. So I would propose that if they believe this, if they truly believe this, lead by example. Get rid of all your assets, rent what you need, let us track you, because tracking is where they're going. They want to blockchain everything. They crush any competitor to their currency. If you think of the US, look what happened, Saddam Hussein and Gaddafi, when they challenged the petrodollar. Why did they let cryptocurrency run? Because they want to blockchain everything. It's a brilliant way to control people. And they got these really intelligent people in to solve these blockchain issues and evolve the blockchain. They're now starting to shut it down. Their regulation is the enemy of cryptocurrency. A lot of people say, no, more people will trust it when there's regulation. I don't agree. It goes against what the decentralized concept is. They're now starting to close the on-ramps. Santander, last year you couldn't transfer money into Binance. Now it's caps on what you can transfer at all for my safety. Now it's fine for me to gamble, etc., but they've chosen this for my safety. I don't think they're going to close the off-ramps as quickly, because if they close the off-ramps, it's more likely to function as a currency instead of a speculative asset, and that could let it get out of their control.
So what would be your main 3 predictions for the next year or so?
My first prediction would be the introduction of digital ID throughout the world. It's already in India. It will be subtle, so you need to be aware that it's not just going to be handed a card. It will be, like in Iran, it was for bread, government subsidies for bread. In Australia, it was government subsidies for childcare. In Sri Lanka, it was for fuel. So it will be incentives to get your digital ID. As I say, that's the last gate to rebel at. Second will be the infrastructure for digital, central bank digital currency will be more coming in. Along with, they're already piloting it. You have FedNow in America, which is the infrastructure. So you're going to see more and more about central bank digital currency. Send people to cbdctracker.org if you don't think central bank digital currency is coming in. It shows you where it's coming in. The third will be, I think that there's going to be a new currency emerging. It will be tangible goods. It will be, say, a basket of commodities, about 20 plus commodities that will be valued in grams of gold. That's where I see the countries that actually have commodities are pushing for that instead of just printing dollars and exporting inflation. So I would say that start to emerge within the next, for me, that's not maybe 12 months, 2 to 3 years, but you'll hear more talk regarding that.
Is it going to work? Are they going to win?
No, they're not going to win. Historically, they never win when people's freedoms are taken away from them. They do tend to push back, and we've always won so far. I think the problem is that good people are passively good. Bad people are actively bad, but there's more good people than there is bad people. So when the good people, which is what we're seeing now, they rise up, they become actively good, we're a force to be reckoned with, and you never win against us. But it's up to us. Whether they win is up to us. So do not let them win. Do not comply.
Well, Melissa, thank you so much, and we look forward to seeing about those predictions on the next Iconoclast 1-to-1.
Thank you.